Welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing, episode number 21. Asif, welcome, buddy. I can't believe 21 episodes. We're 21 episodes old, and I can't believe we've been bringing good news.
I'm feeling old. I'm feeling older just sitting here. So anyhow, it's yeah,
just sitting here. Well, of course, this is the show where we actually get together. We talk about the week that was in location-based marketing and everything that has to do with location around either location device or or out-of-home advertising or digital advertising. It's where we rehash and we extract some of the great value of stuff that's gone on in this industry over the last week. As always, with me is Asif Khan, who is the founder, president, El Comandante of the LBMA, found at the LBMA.com. Asif, man, this is great. I love doing this with you. Thanks for episode number 21. Welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Looking forward to yet another jam-packed episode. So,
well, yes, and of course,
let's get right into it.
Yeah, exactly. My name is Rob Woodbridge. I'm one of your hosts here, your humble hosts, your humble servants from Untether.tv. And why don't we just dive right into it? Yesterday was one of those significant days. No, it wasn't the day that you could watch playoff basketball, playoff hockey, and Major League Baseball all on the same day. It was something called Foursquare Day. 416, 4 squared equals 16. Let's talk about that. You're in Toronto. There was actually an event that took place in Toronto. I'm in Lame, Ottawa, when there wasn't an event that took place here. Let's talk about that day. What was it, and how did it turn out in Toronto?
Yeah, it was a great day, and I think that this is the second year now for Foursquare Day, which happened last year for the first time, and it was bigger and better as billed. And in Toronto, there's a fantastic organizing committee of local Foursquare junkies that basically put this thing together, and it was a great event. I mean, it was down at one of the key bars in downtown Toronto, the Firkin on King. We had over probably 150 people at last count. The LBMA, we were privileged to be one of the sponsors behind it, and sponsors really stepped up in Toronto, and I'm sure in other cities as well. We had, I think, I heard from one of the organizers, $11,000 worth of prizes and stuff that was given away last night for people that came out. So, Virgin Mobile, TIFF, a number of other people, iSkin were behind this thing, supporting Foursquare Day. And, at the end of the day, it was just a celebration, right, of all things Foursquare. And what I liked about the Toronto event and some of the other events, it happened in over 150 cities. There was over 1,200 Foursquare Day celebrations across, various municipalities and countries and so on. So lots going on. Yeah, huge numbers, right? So it's good on them for getting behind it, and I think it's going to be bigger and better next year.
It's pretty amazing to think about it that they've basically created a day, 4/16. So yeah. April 16th every year, they've created a day. It's almost like, at some point it'll be like a national holiday, or it'll be, check in and get your product free day.
Yeah, and yeah, they did create a day. And, and in many of the major cities, I know in New York City and Miami, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, not that that's a major city, but...
but I love saying it. Kalamazoo.
The mayors, the actual mayors of those cities proclaimed it Foursquare Day. So there was an official city proclamations and things like that. So
you tried to do that in Toronto, wasn't somebody kind of like waiting for the mayor to get it signed in the middle of Toronto?
Yeah. So one of the guys on the committee here kind of went and kind of cornered him at an event, and, with a proclamation in hand, and tried to get him to sign it. And at the end, that was on Friday, so we kind of were a little bit too late, but we did get an official letter from the mayor, acknowledging it and thanking us for putting it on, so on and so forth. So that was there. And, there's an agreement that, we'll get the proclamation next year in time and so on and so forth. So, but it was good. And I know Dennis Crowley tweeted this morning out to all his followers to say across, all of the events that were going on yesterday, they had, I'm just going to look up the number here so I'm not misquoting, 3,073,635 check-ins. So over 3 million check-ins in one day.
Is that the most that they've done, or is that?
Yeah, because they just a couple months ago they announced that they had hit 1 million check-ins in one day. which was the most they had ever done. And now they did 3 million on Foursquare Day. So the numbers were huge, right? The numbers were huge. And
brilliant. It's a brilliant marketing tactic, man. It is so smart. Yeah, I have a huge amount of respect for those guys now. As much as I really don't know what the business model is, I have a huge amount of respect for the way that they marketed that. 416, Foursquare Day, 3.5 million check-ins. Good on them.
Yeah, no, and one last point on that before we move on is, it wasn't just pure marketing for them. There was a lot of charities actually benefited from it. A lot of food was collected. Japan Disaster Relief, Red Cross, Humane Society. There was a number of charities that benefited on Foursquare Day. So good on them for that too.
Kudos. So Foursquare Day. Now put it in your calendar for next year. Go so you don't have to wrestle your mayor down. Go and get the proclamation done ahead of time, so you can at least not be in jail during next Foursquare Day because you've been harassing the mayor. Yeah, well, good on them. So Foursquare Day is done. We got 364 days left till the next one. We're counting down the days. We'll get it done. So now onto some real news. Let's talk about this. It's a really quick story, I think, about WordPress and GPress combining or GPress adding geolocation services for your blogging. Very cool.
Yeah, very very cool. And I think the point that I want to get across here is that and we're seeing a little bit more of this before I go into it, kind of almost every week now. And so much of the focus in location-based services has been on consumers and retail services and deals and all that kind of stuff. And I keep getting asked by businesses, where's the B2B applications? Where's, how do we actually use this? Right? For enterprise applications and different things. And not that this is really pure enterprise, but it's kind of like a middle of the ground. And so, for those of us who blog and use WordPress and have our own blog sites and all that kind of stuff, now we've got, this geolocation layer that's been added to it through GPress. And so effectively, in its simplest form, what we're really talking about here is when you blog to basically geotag where you're blogging from and where that content is, and associating it, based on location. And it's interesting, I think, because especially if you have people contributing to your blog, from, it's not just one writer, you've got multiple people contributing in different places and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it adds an interesting layer, and putting maps, into your blogging environment, just the whole geo element that's added to blogs. So really cool.
I think it's great. WordPress. I mean, I think that what it does is it does add that layer. I'm just so surprised that nobody's done it before, because it just seems like a simple thing to be able to do. Maybe there's security concerns because you're enabling it in the browser, but you know what? These kind of simple things, again, all it does is move location to dial tone. And once we're past that, where everything's got a tag, including the humans that are writing, we're on to the next stage, innovation.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that I know one of the elements of this new functionality is that there's a geo RSS capability as well in it. So, from the perspective of if you're subscribed to those feeds and you're only interested in content that's coming from a certain locality, that starts to make sense as well. If it's it's got those tags associated with it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's good. So GPress, you can just find it in WordPress plugins. I think it's free, in fact. So go and take a look at it if you're running WordPress as a blog platform. Almost in the similar vein as a lot of the companies that we've talked about, Bing made a what I would consider a late announcement, but a Me Too announcement this week about their business portal and about geotagging locations and starting to offer coupons and all of these things that everybody else has already done.
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I have been saying for a couple episodes, where's Microsoft? Where is Microsoft in all of this? And so here they come, and they're actually coming pretty hard into this, pretty fast. Although, yes, they're late to the game. Yep. And so, in some respects, I think they're able to use that to their advantage in the sense of, kind of not making the mistakes that have been made and kind of just jumping, leapfrogging ahead. So, what they announced is the Bing Business Portal, And I was reading the press release and some of the stats that they were throwing out from this. So the interesting thing here is that Bing is rapidly gaining market share against Google for search. So they now have in the US 30% of the search market share.
It's incredible.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Whereas a year ago it was 5% or something like So Google is losing market share on the search side, and I think Bing is the primary beneficiary of that. So what is the Bing Business Portal? Well, basically it's like Facebook Places, like Google Places. It's businesses can claim their business listing, claim their place. But it's a little bit more than that. It actually, in particular, if you're, say, a restaurant, you run a restaurant or a small business or whatever it is, in particular for restaurants, though, they've built a lot of functionality into the platform, more than just claiming your place. It actually, you can build your own mobile website through the system. You can, generate your own QR codes through the system.
Yeah.
You can load up your menus for your restaurant into the system. So it's got a lot of additional functionality for that business. It tries to be a little bit more holistic in the offering than just claim your place.
And it's free.
Yeah,
like only Microsoft could do that.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting about it is that I think Microsoft or Bing powers Yahoo now, Yahoo search, right? And that was a big bonus for them to it obviously increased their ownership on the search side. But I wonder how this is going to play out inside of that, because they have access to quite a number of media companies, a number of advertisers, and certainly a number of companies that are listing in Yahoo still. And that really has to help them kind of jump ahead when it comes to activity on this. But offering it for free, I also wonder how that's going to conflict with Yahoo's mobile strategy as well, which you can obviously see that they would do the same thing simply because they're in that business as well.
Yeah, and then the other part of this too is I was reading kind of a separate story, but kind of actually comes together in some respects. So Bing's also got, Microsoft's also got this new platform called StreetSide. Yeah. I don't know if you've read about this one, but effectively it's like Google, Google Maps, Google Street View, but this is called StreetSide. And so they've got the cars going around, taking the photos and mapping and doing all that stuff, not collecting Wi-Fi data. Hopefully, we don't want to see that again. But the interesting thing about it is so they've got all this map data, this kind of street view type map data. So this is Microsoft, this is Bing again. But what they've said is they're actually going to do something that Google has so far said they're not going to do, which is add an ad layer into the map views. So it becomes an ad network opportunity as well, layered on top of these Street View maps. And so they described it as, in the article I was reading, they described it as, like when you're driving around in the real world and, or walking around and you see the guy with the sandwich board standing there saying,
or the guy in the chicken suit.
Or car wash today, or special, on pizza today,
Yep.
1 block that way with the arrow pointing down the street.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is they actually have the ability now to add an ad layer inside of the Street View map so that you actually see that ad directing you based on the maps inside of where you are. So it's really kind of interesting. And Google's so far saying they're not doing that. So this is a differentiator at the moment. It's a little bit different. Yeah. It's a little bit unique, and we'll see whether it works. We'll see whether the advertisers jump on board. But
I think the key, when you talk about what Google Maps has done, is that the key to this and their success, and when or if they should choose to go into advertising, this is Google versus Microsoft. Like, if you go back early before Google Maps, Microsoft had a really good mapping application that everybody used, and it was an open source, or it was an open API mapping environment. Google came out. That's where they have this huge advantage, is that their API is everywhere. It's embedded in every website, and as soon as they turn it on, they have to balance that ability to feed an ad, a location-aware ad, versus pissing off somebody who's just using it for their contact information or their address or how to get to their office space.
That's right.
There's a balance there, but if they ever turned on ads in that, Google, I mean, that's a huge revenue stream almost immediately because of how prolific it is everywhere. So,
well, we'll see. Like, let's see how effective Bing and Microsoft are going to be with this.
It's a good test. It's a good test for Google
it's a good test
to see how Bing does, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to sit back and watch, and
and if it starts making money, they're going to walk in there pretty aggressively. So, Bing Business Portal. Go in, obviously, if you've got a business, tag it, do everything that you need to do it, and then get a QR code free because it's probably the only place you can, as Google has abandoned the QR code, left it for dead. So let's jump over to one of my favorite places in the world, which is France, specifically Paris. But Pujo and Navteq teaming up on some location-aware ads. Certainly, we've obviously talked about Navteq on the show before. And this is a great company that's leveraging the Navteq technology, isn't it?
Yeah. So a few episodes ago, we talked about Navteq announced this platform called Location Point, which is basically an ad network on top of their mapping environment. And we were waiting to see who's going to sign on, who are the customers going to be for this. And then the initial set of customers for Navteq were the apps, the third-party apps, the Points and the Navigons and all these guys licensing map content, and ads being delivered into it from that environment. But this is the first one that I've seen so far where an actual brand, Pujo in this case, car company, big car company, the biggest in France, steps up and says, "Yeah, we want to see if we can use this to drive traffic to our dealerships." And so there's some 428 dealerships in France, and my understanding with the platform today is that you can get messages, you can get ads, when you're 5 kilometers away from a dealership, pointing you to offers and deals and opportunities to come in and test drive and whatnot. And it's quite wide, that radius right now. Although apparently they can geofence that down and get you to delivering ads that are within feet of a dealership. But at the moment they've got this particular offering is
just in case you don't see it, just in case you don't see the dealership.
Apparently, yeah.
Like, where? I'm close. I know.
Well, maybe no, but maybe there's special offers when you're in the dealership.
Yeah, no. See that it makes sense. I love that people are trying to figure out how to leverage this technology. And Location Point to me is a great technology. It's similar to a lot of the technologies that we've seen. We've talked about that. Car dealers, tough thing for me to start on because it's not often that I'm driving and then I get a little notification that says I'm driving, for one thing, right? And then it says, "Hey, come and test drive a Peugeot," right?
But I think for car companies, and we've seen this in the U.S., certainly with Chevy and Gowalla and, GM and Toyotas and Mazda have both done big Foursquare campaigns around, brand building. Not so much,
that makes sense.
Go to the dealership right now and test drive, but, extending the brand, exposing people to new vehicles and product. Strictly through location kind of discovery, it's ads, but it's more about the branding side of it than it is about direct
sales.
Let's go to the dealership. Yeah. And so the Navteq thing, the last point on that is really interesting to me. The numbers surprised me. Is there's 150 million people on this network, on this ad network already.
Yeah, that's incredible. 150 million people.
150 mobile users per month was the number that I read, is their current reach.
And those are people that have opted into this.
Yeah. So that's,
that's
good on them.
That's big, man.
That's big.
Well, I just want to come back to that, is that we talk about this, the cars, for example, and it's an interesting thing because I used to be a Jeep owner for a long time when a Jeep was practical for me. And the Jeep, they had a Jeep Jamboree every year that you would drive your car down and you go off-roading, and they teach you how to do all of these things. It was a really great brand-building exercise where, I often don't take my $20,000 car and take it off-roading, something that you don't do, right?
Right.
Urban off-roading, which means construction. So, but I can see something like this, like working with Location Point or working with Gowalla or Foursquare or somebody like that to enhance that experience, or to generate some kind of reward system for being a part of something like that, geofenced to that spot. Absolutely. But I think that
and that's why companies like BMW that we talked
Yeah,
about the other week,
yeah.
are creating $100 million investment funds to
It's great.
fund guys building stuff because, it's not only about driving people into the dealership. It's about, how can we expose the brand, through other applications? How can we get people to experience, what is BMW or what is Pujo or, and for them, Pujo is about design and technology, as far as, they're concerned. We can't buy Pujo in Canada.
No,
So,
it doesn't
but
doesn't help me right now.
it
So
doesn't help me, but
hopefully that geofence is in 5,000 miles instead of the
yeah,
5 miles.
right.
Yeah,
But, yeah, so I think it is a good brand affiliation for them.
yeah,
We'll see how
100%.
it plays.
They've got to try, and we would criticize for them if they didn't try, and so I'm not going to criticize them for trying. I just think that they have to hone it, and I think we have to see what it is that they're doing. But I love the fact that Navteq. The big story here is that Navteq is now. We talked about where's Navteq. We found out where Navteq was with the location point. Now, what are they going to do with it? They've started to get into these brands, which is great. Outside of feeding longitude and latitude to other companies like Navigon, as you said, they've actually started to get in and start to play, and that's
Right.
that's good for the industry, we think. So along that same line is that let's talk about Adcentricity and their new product. It's Consumer Sync, which is similar in scope, I would say, especially for the digital out of home advertising. These guys, obviously, Adcentricity, they just announced this week.
Yeah, so Consumer Sync is kind of their latest kind of product offering in the marketplace, and Adcentricity is one of those digital signage companies that's really kind of shifted their whole positioning, their whole branding, their whole messaging around being a location aware ad network.
Yeah.
And I think that's really really key. In the industry, we're going to see a lot more shifting from a brand perspective, from a messaging perspective, and how these digital at-home companies are positioning themselves from that point of view. And before I go into the product, on that point, next week, so the 28th or 29th of the month, there's an entire conference in San Francisco called Consumer Engagement Technology World, which is all of these guys, the Adcentricities, the Acus, the Nano Nations, all these digital out-of-home companies are gathering. And a big portion of the content is about location, location-based marketing and connectivity between digital out-of-home and Foursquare and building in location-aware widgets and the mobile integration and all of that kind of stuff.
And analytics that
And
crunch all
analytics,
that.
right? So Consumer Sync, the Adcentricity product, is right up, in that area.
Yep.
And what's interesting here is that they've partnered up with Environics for Canadian data and Nielsen for US data, and they basically sucking in all this, all this demographic profile data, 10,000 variables, from what I understand from the press release, and it's really about giving those brands, giving those advertisers the ability to kind of truly target, not just based on pure demographic profile, but to marry all that data up against location relevant information to know that here's who actually goes to this bar network versus this Walmart over here versus this gas station, digital screen in the gas station, and being able to kind of give their buyers, their ad buyers, that ability to kind of have that knowledge in real time based on all these variables is just so powerful from a segmentation and targeting perspective.
Yeah, and I mean the numbers are staggering. So 10,000 consumer profile variables that they've been able to pull through, as you said, and some great examples about this is that they'll pinpoint down to the a demographic that is either, we're back on that car thing, that is actually interested in buying or not interested in buying a car,
right.
And displaying that appropriate ad at the right time. I mean, it's it's mecca for advertisers, and I think that this is one of those things that that the more data that gets pumped into this, the greater it is. Are these guys? You think Adcentricity are they the best situated? Do they have the most certainly the most consumer profiles or the most data points here, or is there another company that we're not really looking at right now that says that is better positioned for kind of profiling a consumer? You know,
Well, I don't know. I mean, is the quick answer to that, but I certainly would say that, in terms of, doing these licensing deals, these partnership deals with Nielsen and Environics,
yeah,
having access to that level of data. I haven't heard of other digital out of home companies with large networks doing that and kind of marrying, kind of that location element, with that demo data and tying all that together. So, lack of knowledge or ignorance on my part, I'm going to say, yeah, I think these guys, have done something pretty amazing here, and their network is pretty significant as well in terms of reach. So these guys have a lot of screens out there. So the Adcentricity they don't operate screens per se. They basically provide an OS, an operating platform on top of other people's screens, and then deliver those ads based on the profiling that we just talked about. So
I just wonder. I mean, at this point, I would think that Adcentricity is great. Credit card companies, greater. Debit card companies, even greater than that, especially when it comes to knowing, being able to profile a consumer. Wouldn't you, if you could somehow look at a credit card company and the vast amount of anonymous data that they get from a buying perspective, that's going to give you an incredible range of or ability to pinpoint consumer expectations.
Totally. I mean, or air miles data or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to get at here. I think it's very similar. So, I think Visa and MasterCard and these guys, Amex and so on, are well positioned to layer up with a digital out of home network. We'll see how that works, but.
Yeah, they got to get through all the consumer stuff. It's easier to build a new product than it is to actually leverage your existing product because there's so much regulation around how people can use the credit card information. But they do a great job, if you think about it, on fraud control and theft, because you'll find out within a moment if you do something with your card that is out of ordinary for your profile, right? So
yeah, totally.
You just think about what they can do with it. Man,
that's the beauty, right? I mean, are you really in New York right now? No, you're not. Okay. And that's
but you just bought a car.
Is key to that, right? So.
Well, so Adcentricity.
I just bought a Pujo, didn't I?
Yeah, exactly. Nice. So Adcentricity, their new product, Consumer Sync. You can find information about them on their Adcentricity website. I'm sure we'll see much more of those guys going forward. And if you can make it, so it's at the end of next week down in San Francisco for the event.
Yeah, and if anybody, LBMA is a media partner for that event as well. So if anybody wants a ticket to that event, just email us. We can get you a pass to that. No problem.
Nice. So, check out
for all those listeners out there. Added value, only available now.
Right here.
So
my mother is on her way. She'll be emailing you in a moment. So I talked about this just before we went live. Another thing that's happening in this space is an insane amount of funding that's going on, especially in the mobile space, and the location-based marketing space itself is heating up. And so, where applicable and when applicable, we think that a good resource for you fine listeners and watchers is the ability to find out if some of these companies are getting funded that we've been talking about. So last week was, in fact, fortuitous because two of the companies that we've talked about previously actually closed some rounds. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so in either case, we're not talking about 50 and $100 million rounds. We're talking really small incremental rounds. The two companies are Gold Run, which is augmented reality location-based app. We've talked about these guys a few times. Yep. H&M, Airwalk, Barnes & Noble, a bunch of companies using these guys, and so they got an additional 1.1 million. To kind of further product development. And I think the nice thing about it for Gold Run in particular is that the funding came from private individuals in this case. This isn't institutional funding at all. They kind of went back to the friends and family and interested onlookers and secured another 1.1. And these guys, they've got a solid product. They've done well.
Good brands using it already, so
big brands, yeah. So good on them. And if you can stay away from the big institutions from a funding perspective, hey, even better, right? So
absolutely
good on them for now. And so 1.1 million for a New York-based Gold Run. The other one is Scout Mob. So Scout Mob is a local deals service. They raised another 1.5, and I think Scout Mob, to me, it's good that they got some funding. They announced that they're starting to offer local deals in 10 new cities on top of their existing offerings. I think the challenge here is with Groupon now coming and saying, we're going mobile, we're going with the Groupon Now service, perishable deals, all that kind of stuff based on location and mobile, which is the space Scout Mob's been playing in from the beginning. We'll see whether they can survive. I don't know. And $1.5 million isn't a lot of money in the grand scheme of things when you're fighting a Groupon. But
not when Groupon goes public with the whenever it is, it's going to be the largest IPO.
But good on them for for hanging in there and getting a little more fuel, and let's see what they can do with it.
1.5 is nothing. Neither of those are small amounts to shake a stick at. I mean, 1.1 and 1.5 they are decent raises, especially on the private side. But when you start to think about what's going on in the rest of the world, combined between Flipboard and Color, it's kind of $94 million US for two companies.
Yeah,
it's like it just shows you, maybe this is a statement that we've been talking about, is this level of innovation that isn't there yet on the location-based side, is that they're commiserate with the amount of money that goes into the companies. When you start to think of Flipboard, which may not be innovative, I'm going to reserve my judgment on that, and Color may not be either, but they're big plays. They're big bets on future investment.
They're big bets, but they're also, I don't want to go too much into the venture capital space because, I've got some experience there, but, there is a little bit of that notion that, Color, for example, is a San Francisco-based company. They're in the Valley with all the big funds.
And a good team. And a $40 million
Gold Run
team.
And Scout Mob are on the East Coast. Gold Run's New York-based. And Scout Mob is in Atlanta, right? Yeah. And, quite often, you hear the stories about how deals get done, and reality is VCs are a bit fickle, and they don't like to spend a lot of time on planes, and they like to just, go and see their companies. And, if I don't have to fly from San Francisco to Atlanta every week to go check up on Scout Mob, well, I'm not going to do it, right? And I've heard many of those stories too,
So true. Well, good luck for both of those guys, and my hope is that there is always a room for a Scout Mob, even if there is a Groupon that comes in, because I hope
so.
Scout Mob.
I really like Scout Mob. I think it's a solid product.
Yep.
From a product offering perspective and design wise, it's really really good. So I hope that they can use this and kind of move forward, and who knows, maybe Groupon will buy them next.
Well, that's you maybe. Good for them, but Scout Mob will at least keep Groupon honest, right? And maybe Scout Mob will be the innovator, and Groupon will be the laggard in this instance. Right. So getting them funding is good. So let's talk about the product of the week, which is timely for Canadians, simply because, as we've said many times, we're in the middle of an election, our fourth in 7 years, and if you believe polls, well, they haven't changed at all in Canada since the day that the election was actually announced. Maybe a fluctuation, but they're never accurate. And I believe that, I see you have stumbled on to one of the best ways to determine whether or not, or what the polling situation is with Canadian politics. Let's talk about GeoPolster Canada.
Yeah, so I love this because, we talk a lot about lack of innovation in this space, and this is, coming out of a national newspaper company, the National Post in Canada.
Yep.
And some pretty cool guys over there that are big Foursquare fans. And in fact, they were at the Foursquare Day Toronto event last night. And so props to those guys. And so they've come up with something called GeoPolster. And effectively what it is they've tried to make the election, this federal election that we have here, fun, add a gaming element to it, and marry that up with kind of mobile polling, let's call it. So here's how it works really simply. So you go to GeoPolster's website, you create an account, and then you kind of associate that account with your Foursquare account. And so what happens is as you go to places and you check in on Foursquare. This is obviously for people who use Foursquare. You check in at whatever place, and then you're asked to basically cast your ballot and cast your vote at that place for which party you're supporting. And so we have 4 parties here, the Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, and the Green Party, and the Bloc, which isn't really national, but 5 parties. And so you cast your ballot at that place, and then what happens is the gaming element starts to take over, because these places are won over by parties, and there's these battles going on in almost like real world battles for which party controls that particular venue. And so City Hall is owned by the Liberals, and in Toronto, and Times Square in New York City, if we were doing this in New York, would be owned by the Conservative Party, and so on and so forth. And there's this battle going on amongst Foursquare users for control. Almost, it's like playing Risk, almost. By casting your ballots.
It's location by location. Like, this is street warfare, right? Street
warfare. It's awesome. I love it. And so, just some of the quick numbers here. So, on a national scale, the Conservatives are currently leading. Let me just refresh here. Make sure I've got the latest numbers for you guys.
This is polling as it happens here, because I've got
polling as it happens.
When we started, the Liberals were actually in the lead.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first time in 7 years.
So the Liberals are back in the lead. Sorry, here we go. So
nice.
The Liberals have 32.37% of the country, followed very closely by 32.21%. Recount. So we're looking at a recount. So that's on the national level.
And isn't this the highest that the New Democrats and the Green Party have both ever showed? 20% for the NDP, and the Greens at 12.38%.
Yeah. So and just to kind of explain to our followers, so it's like you'll see things in kind of the stream, almost like a tweet wall. It says the Liberals have seized control of the Shoppers Drug Mart in Kitchener, Ontario, and Conservatives have seized control of Shelby's Diner in Toronto, and the NDP are now in control of Woody and Sailors. It's interesting. It makes the election fun, I think, and so good on the National Post for doing this. If you're in Canada, I encourage you to go and check this out. It's called GeoPolster. It's our product of the week, and love it.
I'm so impressed with the National Post for doing this. I'm so impressed. So it's GeoPolster, GeoPoll.
Put a link up on the
STER-Canada.com. If you're listening to it right now, go and check it out. And man, good on the National Post. So impressed that they managed to put this together. And it gives you some insight into the people, anyways. If we see like Liberals or the Green Party spending a lot of time in the beer stores, I think that we've. Anyways, it's a great resource. It's a great product. Let's talk about the resource, Street Fight Mag, and I think that this is so appropriate, especially when we leave the GeoPolster Canada site, which is a street fight. Let's talk about streetfightmag.com.
Yeah, so this is don't want to say too much about it, but this is a new magazine, streetfightmag.com, that is basically trying to pull together all the kind of news and content around everything hyperlocal. So you can sign on with them. There's a daily email kind of roundup of what's going on. There's they do industry interviews of folks like what you do, Rob, but specifically just in the location arena, commentary, guest posts, all kinds of content. So it's streetfightmag.com.
Where are they based? Do you know?
I want to say Colorado, but I could be wrong.
Well, I think it's a good resource. I'm so surprised that we haven't seen this before. I mean, I think we've seen a little bits and pieces about it, but I think that this is the first time that I've really seen something like this, where it's the roundup resource. And I love the daily email. Untether.tv does a daily mobile email that is all encompassing, but I love the myopic focus on what they're doing here with streetfightmag.com.
Yeah, and it kind of comes from they acquired local.ly a while ago. So I assume that's kind of rolled into this new mag.
Well, good on them. So streetfightmag.com, they've got a whole bunch of stuff in there, and well worth it. I think if you combine that with like the Foursquare blogs as well, you'll get a good sense of what's going on in the industry very, very quickly. And if you want to stay up to date, but obviously you also want to go to thelbmay.com, because that's where you're going to find all the details about where you're speaking and the events that you're participating in and the launches that you're having. It's going to be a pretty busy next couple of weeks for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially this next few days coming up, obviously, is the O'Reilly Wear 2.0 conference.
2.0, yeah.
all of the the Dennis Crowleys and Josh Williams and Marissa Mayers and the leaders of location and for most of these platform companies are going to be there.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see whether there's any news, any product announcements, any new things that come out of this. So I'm certainly going to be there. Looking forward. Got my notepad ready to go, and we'll see what we come up with for next week. So.
Yeah, and so I think that the roundup next week we're going to get to have a little bit delay for next Sunday. We decided that we'll do it on a Monday morning, so that the podcast will go out by noon next Monday. Just so that we can actually get a roundup of what's going on and also celebrate a little bit of Easter time with our families. So
Right.
look for that next Monday at noon. It'll be delayed a little bit, but you can understand that. Asif's got a pretty busy travel schedule. So we will accommodate that, and we'll pull in all that information from Where 2.0 and have a summary of that provided.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it. Episode 21, legal in all states, North American. I think actually in this whole hemisphere we are now legal to drink. So I'm going to finish my evening with one. Asif, I would beg that you should do the same.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you guys for watching, listening, wherever you are. Get it? Location, wherever you are. You can do that. Really appreciate it. If you got any feedback, we love to hear it on tether@gmail.com. You can go to or wherever you've found this podcast, just leave a comment and we will respond. We've already had some great feedback from you guys. We love it. We love it. We love it. Love it. Want it. Keep it coming. And we'll be here for episode number 22 next week. Thanks, Asif.
Thanks, Rob.